All right, hey everybody. Welcome back to somewhat of a part two, I suppose, to last week's stream. I spiked on the ability to kind of use the safe or the validated input object that is already in Laravel, already in Illuminate, and we proved that that actually works with pretty limited changes, I think. It is touching some of the core classes, and I know there was a little bit of disagreement about like the whole principle of what I'm doing, but again, I consider this to be a bit of a sharp object, and the value that it brings is the ability that you would really never have to worry about mass assignment or setting fillable or guarded in your models ever again. I think that is the part that's pretty cool. So anyway, hopefully everybody can see me and hear me okay. I know last week there was a little bit of a hum in the background. Again, haven't live streamed in several months. I think the issue was probably the furnace was running, so hopefully that's off today because it's a little bit warmer. But if you're still hearing a hum, let me know in the chat. I can switch to my AirPods. So with that, let's get into the code. Basically, let's get in here and basically take a look at the framework. I want to pull down the master branch to get kind of the latest code. So I did that in the background just to kind of help us out. But again, in the interest of kind of taking you on the entire journey, that's all I've done so far. So let's kind of move my little picture in picture out of the way here, and let's do a git checkout -b safe objects. All right, so this is off the master branch, which would be to Laravel 11. I'm putting this to Laravel 11 because I feel like with the type hint removal or changes that are happening with this, this is an opportunity this would be a breaking change. Otherwise, it's actually not a breaking change at all. I know Laravel sometimes kind of is a little flexible on whether they consider that a breaking change, but since these are public methods, I think that would actually be pretty nasty. So that's why I'm targeting master branch, which is Laravel 11. Hopefully that'll be released in a few weeks. So in the off chance, in the very off chance that this gets merged, it's targeting Laravel 11 as kind of a new feature anyway. So let's get over to PHP Storm. And I think what I'm going to do is probably kind of like last time, I'm gonna test drive this a little bit. So last time I test drove it by like generating an application that had test with Blueprint and then running those tests and making sure they passed while I kind of spiked and disabled things hacked into the framework. So today, let's kind of do the same thing. Let's go find a test for saving a model or creating a model and see if we can pass in this validated input object. So I'm just gonna go try to find the test for that with like a model test. Here we go, eloquent model test. I wonder what the difference between eloquent model test and database eloquent model test is. I guess we will find out. Let's just see if there's a create in here anywhere. Test model create. Okay, so test user can update nullable date. Test attribute change, okay, discard changes, test insert record. I'm kind of looking for something that feels, that kind of like demonstrates the fillable stuff, because that's what we're changing. So I want to put this with the tests that are fillable. So let's maybe look at that other one, database model test, maybe. Let's see if there's anything in here relating to fillable. There we go, test fillable, fillable, fillable. This is a little closer. Do they use create anywhere? They do use create. Test create method saves new model. That's all they kind of do here. I would ultimately want to test create, but maybe for simplicity, let's just mess with fillable for now. Let's look at what other these tests are. Fillable. All right, test fillable. How else is this used? Test fillable JSON attributes. Okay, here's this prevent silently discarding thing. I kind of feel like I'm in the right place. Let's put it here for now. I can always clean that up off stream before the PR, but this will get us moving. So let's, we can say something here like test fillable accepts accepts safe object, right? And instead of passing an array, we wouldn't set any fillable, so we're not doing that. And here we would pass kind of the same thing, but here would be more of like the validated input. So we would say new validated input. There it is. And I think you can pass this an array, so we'll pass it an array. It's doing the same stuff. It's the exact same test. So this is the very first test that would kind of start to drive this out, right? We're gonna need to add more tests. And again, this may not be the right spot. I'll find the best spot for this later, but this does get the ball rolling. So let's do composer install, probably. Whoa. Yes, that is not ideal. Let's do rm-rf vendor, and now let's try composer install. Still doesn't like it. Required package, not present. The lock file is not. Okay, let's just do composer update, shall we? I don't really want to do that, but they probably don't even commit their lock file. Do they? No, they don't. So composer update's perfectly acceptable, especially since I'm on the master branch needing to pull in all the Laravel 11 dependencies. So good, that helped. Okay, now let's do vendor bin PHP unit. I got a little quick key that copies this test file, and I'm gonna filter just this because I don't want to run the entire test suite. So let's just filter this. I would definitely expect an error. Yes, we do. It's a type error because, again, we're going to need to start removing some of these types based on last time. So let me go do that. So let's get down into fill. Oh, thanks, PHP Storm. Okay, let's do model, and let's find it ourselves while PHP Storm's catch up. All right, so let's kill the array as a starter. Let's run our test. We're just going to do this a little bit systematically. Okay, same thing. Now fillable from array is going to gripe because it's an array. It shouldn't be, you know, whatever. So I don't want to go changing this method. What we need to do now is kind of what we spiked on last time. We need to say if attributes is an instance of illuminate, what was that, support, validated input. I don't know if I want to import it, I guess is what I'm getting at. Let's just, I was trying to avoid importing it while PHP Storm's crapping out. Let's get rid of this. Where are you? It is under support. I was on the right track. Let's go back here. Oh, I see what I did. I typed instance of. There we go. All right, that's a little better. Do you say that or class? I always forget. Oh my gosh, I've been typing other languages today. That's part of the problem. Okay, cool. If it's an instance of validated input, then for now, again, let's just kind of systematically do this. We'll say attributes equals attributes all. We'll just pop that out, turn it back into an array, and make sure the rest plays on. And it does. Okay, great. Now what we need to do is start pushing the envelope. We're able to pass in the safe object now, and it uses it. But now we need to push the envelope and say, not only does it use it, but it would bypass kind of the mass assignment fillable restrictions, if you will. So let's get back down to our test. Let's write another test that kind of demonstrates that. So I think if we get down here into fillable, first of all, let's take a look at this. Does it have, so it just says guarded. So it's kind of already proving that we're able to do that. I think what I want to do now is kind of demonstrate that, do we use guarded here? We're kind of already proving that we're not. I think we could be a little more explicit. We could say guarded everything, right? Do they use guarded in here anywhere? Is guarded unguarded? There we go. Unguard set. Okay, so test unguard allows anything to be set. This is kind of what we're after. Guard everything. Yeah. Let's do this. Let's kind of make a similar test, but demonstrate that even though this thing is guarded, we're still allowed to kind of fill everything in there, right? So let's go back to wherever ours was. Here it is. Just to kind of demonstrate that test using safe object allows guarded to be set. All right, let's kind of see that this works. If we guard everything and we do the same thing, we call fill here, same difference. I don't think I want to unguard it. I think I would want to maybe do something like that. Let's find out. So we know that works. Let's bring this one in. Okay, add name to fillable property to allow mass assignment. Okay, this demonstrates what we want. So if we go back and take a look at this, before it was just kind of working because, well, you know what? Oh, it works before because this model naturally just doesn't guard anything. It's got an empty guardable array. But if we demonstrate here that we are now guarding everything, meaning nothing is fillable, and we try to pass stuff in, we're getting that mass assignment protection kind of kicking in for us, right? This mass assignment exception. And that's what we would expect. We weren't getting that before, again, by demonstration, because if we go down here, nothing's guarded, right? Nothing's guarded, but nothing's also fillable necessarily. So kind of an odd test. I may end up making my own model stub, but again, let's keep pushing through here. So if I go down to fillable, what we're after now is to probably now inside of here, this is where we would do something like static unguard, right? And let's run this again, and it passes. The problem now though, and I think this could be demonstrated with another test, so let's just write it. Nothing wrong with having lots of tests. We can say something like test using safe objects preserves guarded state. All right? So kind of going back to that thing that we had before, we could say model unguard. So we unguard it, even though everything's guarded. Again, it doesn't really matter. And then down here, we would want to make sure that model is guarded. Do they have an is guarded? Yes, they do. We would say this assert true model is guarded. What's wrong with model? Result is not used anywhere. Is guarded key. Is that not right? Is that not the right method? Oh. Is it like is unguarded or unguarded? Is guarded. That's a particular key. Unguarded. They've got one. What is it called? Not regard. Is unguarded. Yeah, they do have that. What's going on here? Is unguarded. Not sure why that isn't getting picked up. Oh, it's a static method, of course. So we can call it statically. And what's wrong with it now? Method unguarded. I don't know what's going on with PHP Storm. It's lagging. It's lagging its butt off here. All right. That shouldn't have passed. Oh, this test is actually passing because we're leaving it unguarded. What should go back is this assert false. This one's the one that'll actually end up failing. So we keep it unguarded there, but then we would also want to demonstrate that, that it is not unguarded in this test. So this one will actually be the one that ends up failing. So let's go back. That one auto passes. We'll make sure that still passes here in a second. This one fails because fails asserting that true is false. Because again, we made this guarded, or sorry, we unguarded it here, but we're not kind of re-guarding it. So let's add our little thing from last week. And again, I might be moving a little bit fast here because we did spike on this last time. So all this code's kind of been written before and it's in my head. So we can say static is unguarded, and we'll change this to was unguarded. And then effectively down here, the very bottom, we can say if was unguarded, if was not unguarded, we would end up re-guarding it. So we can say static regard. What does regard do? Yeah, it just puts it back to false. Okay, I think that communicates pretty well. Back to passing, let's get that other test. Still passes, let's go back to our original test. Still passes. Hey, you know what? Let's run the whole test suite. Nothing. There was a warning. Interesting. Warnings for -- show warnings. Let's just make sure we didn't do, oh, is it display warnings? I always forget. Display warnings? What's going on here? Triggered by, okay, so what is this? Undefined array key address line 1. This does not throw, test throw. These don't relate to me. I might fix it, but they don't relate to what we're doing. So let's just turn that off. Okay, so the point here is that this is working. We've got test, we've recreated, we haven't broken anything, again, by removing that. Let's do one last thing that I think PHP Storm is kind of hinting at. If we look here, we're getting a little squiggly, expected parameter of array. Let's fix that. So what we were really saying here is that this takes an array or our new illuminate support validated input, right? So it'll take an array or that. If we go back here, once PHP Storm catches up, that should end up going away, and it does. Beautiful. Okay, so we removed the type hint from PHP land. That might be a cause for concern, or this getting closed. I don't know, but again, we're just kind of spiking on stuff here. I think the thing to do now would be to demonstrate that you can actually create one of these, but as we kind of saw last week, you might get a database error if you pass in some kind of safe object and, you know, it's not a column in the database. So what we need to find, we've proven that we can call fill kind of directly. And it doesn't really matter if something's fillable or if it's totally guarded in this case, or if it's unguarded. It all just kind of works. It preserves the state, everything, you know, as we expect, right? This isn't really allows guarded to be set. It's more like using safe object works. What does it say? Test fillable. Test filling totally guarded model using safe object. Yeah, or with safe object. I like that better. Sorry, I'm just thinking these through. I'll clean that up before I actually issue the PR. Let's go find create, which I think is probably in this database test. And let's make sure that this works all the way top down. Because again, our ultimate goal is to not have to pass an array to create, but be able to do something in your controller like request safe, and it's done, right? Don't have to think about fillable, don't have to think about guarded. There are implications of this. It's a sharp knife, but I think for, you know, seasoned Laravel developers, you know, this is a nice to have. This is a nice option. Nothing prevents you, of course, as we saw, all tests are passing, nothing prevents you from writing code the way you've always written it. But as someone personally who uses form request objects a lot, I just find it a little cumbersome to mess with that safe object. I think it's more powerful than kind of it's allowed to be currently. So I'm giving it some of its power back, if you want to look at it that way. So I think what I'd like to do is, I don't know if this is the right test, but I feel like, what is this? Test discard changes. Yeah. I kind of want to see, what I want to test here is that, first of all, I can create, I can add this to the database, right? That would be nice. And then I also want to demonstrate that this still ends up throwing a insert exception or an SQL exception, if you attempt to fill an attribute that doesn't have a database column, right? I think that's kind of the last step. So let's write those two tests, and then I think we're probably in a good place. So yeah, here's a pretty decent test. Let's just mimic this because it's kind of like all encapsulated. So I just want to say something like test create model with safe object. So what we can do is we can kind of just leave this alone. It doesn't really matter, right? None of this matters, I don't think. We've got this table actions, guarded ID. Nothing else is guarded, which means you can fill it no matter what. So I think probably what we should do is switch this to fillable and just have an empty array for fillable. I think that's probably the best example of what we're after. And here we can just call new instance, which actually also does take that. That's fine, we'll just do that. And instead we can say new validated input like we've been doing and just pass in all the same stuff. We don't even need end. I'm not trying to mess with fillable. Let's just make this super simple. I don't even think any of this other stuff matters. Let's make this focused on what we're after here. I don't think any of this matters. I like to keep the test focused, right? So we've got an ID, we've got a label, it's all there. We're gonna test that the database has. So I don't know if I'll be able to run this actually locally, depending on how or what database this uses in the background, so this could be a problem. Might use SQLite, we'll see. Probably not. Type error, okay, that's good. We actually expected a type error. This kind of drives that out. So let's go to instance. So new instance does not have a type. So I want to point that out, that not everything that takes an attribute, which is an array, does that. So here's this cast, so let's get rid of that. We definitely need to get rid of that. And then builder create must be of type array. So this forwards calls line 23. We've seen this before. Let's try this again. Nope, still not good enough. Okay. Sorry, my chat box is in the way. Validated input called in forwards calls. It's actually an eloquent builder create. There we go. Eloquent builder create. Let's find create. There it is. So taps a new model instance, passes in the attributes. So we can pop that off. And it passes. All right, hey, sweet. Okay, that's what we expect. Again, got to clean up those doc blocks, but that's a good pass. That's what we expected in this case. Let's demonstrate one more thing here. I don't know if they do it in here. Let's see if there's any kind of exception. There are no exceptions in here. Test create model with safe object throws exception for unknown column. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Same drill, but now we're going to pass in a validated input of foo or just unknown column let's copy this. I would expect an SQL exception here. And we do. Table action has no column named unknown. Again, this is that sharp knife bit that I'm talking about here. If you're going to use a safe object and you're bypassing this mass assignment and all this stuff, you know what you're doing. You're the developer and you're saying, hey, this is a safe object and it aligns with my database and everything that I'm passing in should be put into the database. That's what you're saying. So I think this is a valid exception. Let's have the test for it though. Trying to think. I think you might just be able to say like, what does it actually throw? Query exception. That's fine with me. Again, I might look at what other tests do, but I think you can say something like this, expects exception or expect exception. There it is. Query exception. Oh, it takes the string. So string. Sorry. Class. Duh. All right, let's pop that off. There we go. All right, this should pass now. Great. All right, and you'd never really get down here anyway, and just to kind of prove that, I think here, I don't think you get here. Yeah, you never get there anyway, so this is kind of inconsequential. We could probably go so far as to say this dot expects message. The message is table action has no column named unknown. I think that's probably pretty standard. Let's find out. Let's see if this works. It still works. Let's mess with, let's call this foo and just make sure I'm not getting lucky. There we go. Okay, cool. Good. That's a good test. Again, not sure if these tests go in the right spot, but that is a good test. The last thing I think I would want to do is in here, or sorry, in builder, again, just to keep this consistent, we would probably want to say and illuminate support validated input. Awesome. And we would want to do that actually up here in the new instance as well. So you take that as well as this validated input. Again, there was no type in here, so that's not hurting anything. And we could go so far as to kind of prove that. There's one other place I think that happens here. Update. Update really just calls, I think we would want to do update as well. I don't know, again, if that's done here or not. Let's find out. Do we call update here anywhere? See, it's interesting to me that I don't know how this test fits into the framework. Like, is it only doing create, I guess? Is there another like test update in here somewhere? These are very like individual. I wonder if there's, here we go. Eloquent update test. There you go. All right, well, seems like that's the right spot. Test basic update, test update with limits and orders, test update with joins, test soft deletes, test increments. I don't think we need to mess with any of that. Let's test this basic update. Yeah, let's test this basic update and kind of do the same thing. Wait a second. It's calling delete. That's strange. Oh, here's an update. Okay. How the... It's called test basic update, and it calls delete. It's blowing my mind right now. Sorry. I would expect something like update here and whatever. Anyway, let's do test model create. Let's get the model. Test update allows safe object. All right. So we've got this test model, and it's saying nothing's fillable. Let's use test model 2. Here we go. Let's use test model 2. Test model 2 allows you to set the name Test model 2 takes a name, job's nullable. Good. Okay. So what we can do is, what is job? Sorry. Job is a string, no big deal. So we have name, string random, and then we don't do any of that. Let's just do model, and we'll say update, and instead of passing an array, in this case, we're gonna, again, pass it a new validated input of job, and here we'll pass in developers, right? And this doesn't make any sense. What we would expect now is that model got filled and the database has a certain thing, right? So we could do record find. That's what they're doing. No problem. All right, we can kind of just mimic this test the same way. So let's do, we updated this model. Let's just refresh it for good measure. We'll refresh and we'll say assert same developer on model job, right? Cool. Let's see if this works. I think if this works, like, it's probably the end of what as far as I'd want to go. I just want you to be able to create, save, update, fill, any kind of those things with a safe object. That's kind of the heart of it. There might be more paths. I'll let that kind of get noted in the PR, but let's see if this passes. Again, we don't expect it to because of the type error. This is kind of driving out all those places where we pass in an array. So let's go back to model. Here's update. We can simply get rid of that. Let's go ahead and be good kids and pass in that. Do I have that in my paste buffer? Yeah, I do. Good. Let's pass that in. Nice. Let's go back to our test, run this again, and we pass. There it is. I think we're in a good place. Again, I'm going to make sure that I put the fillable stuff in the right spot. I feel like I did now that we saw create and update. We've demonstrated that really, again, all those paths for creating this are allowed. We've updated everything. So I guess to that point, let's just kind of go ahead and kind of start prepping this PR. So we've updated we've gotten rid of the type hint, and we've updated the doc block to demonstrate this new type that we're allowed to pass in. I'll leave it up to Laravel team. You know, they could always do a mixed type here if they want to keep that. They could always do a mixed type. That's up to them. I don't think they do that in the framework anywhere. That's why I've chosen to remove it. We've also seen that not all places where attributes is passed in has that array type hint anyway. So there are already places where that's kind of, you can get around that. For example, new instance. So I don't think it's a huge deal that it's getting removed, but I'll let them decide. So here what we're doing is we're tracking if it was unguarded. We're now saying if you've passed in validated input, a validated input object for your attributes, we'll go ahead and pull those attributes off, turn it back into an array so the rest of the code behaves the same way, but we'll effectively unguard your model. This is going to allow you to get around the mass assignment bit because, again, you've passed in a safe object. You've passed in data as the developer that you've said, no, this is all good. This is effectively calling force fill. This is no different than if you called force fill in your code. There isn't really niceties around that for, I don't know if there's a force update or not. But anyway, it's not just a force fill because you have to remember, and that's the big thing of this, and that's what I'm going to have to sell in the PR. This isn't just taking away type hints. You have to think of what this is allowing you to do. This is allowing you to not have to ever set the fillable or guarded properties on your models ever again. They're not required when you're updating, when you're doing assignment directly. That's all allowed. So, this allows you in your controllers to do that. And as we've done on our test, you could even just, if you wanted to you trusted some safe input, you could just new up a validated input object. There's no reason. You couldn't do that just as we've been doing in the tests. So again, Right now, when you're looking at the model class, this seems a little scary, right? Because we're unguarding your model, we're taking off a type hint. But at the end of the day, it's only a few lines of code that if you pass an invalidated input, you're effectively saying, hey, trust this input, do your thing, let me kind of save on some keystrokes in my code base. So, okay, if it was, these are always the mind-bending, like double negation things. If it was not unguarded, then reguard it. That's probably the right way to say that. Okay, again, we've tweaked the doc block here. This was for a new instance, which didn't have the type hint anyway, but it was array casting attributes. That's interesting that it array casts it. Part of me wonders, like, are there places of new instance that call this with a string or something that needs to be array cast? The array cast there kind of concerns me. What I'm thinking is, part of me wonders if I should do like an instance of test there, and if not, then array cast it again. I'm wondering if I'm losing functionality there or some kind of fail-safe that they were doing. Again, it didn't have the type hint, so maybe that's why the cast was there. I can't leave the cast, but I wonder if instance of needs to happen there. That's where I'm going to trust the test suite. If the test suite doesn't have anything that demonstrates that, then, again. Okay, remove the type hint, updated the doc block. Okay, now for our tests, we were importing that. We have tests around all the things that we wrote. So test fillable accepts a safe object, test filling a totally guarded model with a safe object, and then test filling with, I'll tweak these names, but test filling with safe object preserves guarded state. I think that's important. These are pretty good. So we're basically doing the test create with safe object, just doing the same thing, just demonstrating that we can go down that create path. And then it throws a database error when you set a column that, shouldn't be set or doesn't exist. And then same thing with update. I suppose we could do the same thing here where we say, hey, you set a thing, but we've already kind of proven that out. I'm not too worried about it. There's no other tests in here that test that anyway, I don't think. So I feel pretty good about this. I feel pretty good about the code that I've written. I don't feel very confident this will be merged. But here's the point. You got to try stuff every now and then. We want to push the framework, right? I think there's something here. This is a solution. I'm perfectly willing to accept that this is not the solution, right? I don't think that this is the solution. But what it may do, it may get closed, but what it may do is help the core team or motivate the core team or inspire them to, hey, JMac was onto something with that safe object. It didn't work here and here, but maybe we could make a new object that allows you to, maybe there's some opportunity here, because I do think that mass assignment and fillable and guarded is a bit of a dance. We're in Laravel 11. Like, I think it's a paper cut in my mind, especially when I'm writing code at that controller level. I have this form request object that should have validated and safe input at that point. I should be able to do something with that object, I feel like. Again, maybe this isn't it, but there's something there. So maybe it gets us to where we want to go, right? And that's why I'm opening this PR. I know in the chat and in the YouTube comments, you all have expressed some concern about the guarding, the unguarding, stuff like that. I'm going to file it under the disclaimer of this is a sharp knife, and I'm trusting that developers know what they're doing. So I'll share the PR on Twitter. I'm going to kind of end the stream here and take the last 15 minutes or so to kind of guide up this PR, write up a good description, and again, we'll see if all the tests are passing and GitHub Actions. So thanks everybody for joining live. I'm going to keep these going next week, but probably do something either with the Laravel 11 shift or updating Blueprint for Laravel 11. So one of those two. If you have an opinion, let me know in the chat or on Twitter. See y'all next time.